6 tips for owls that will allow them to fall asleep faster and wake up easier. Owls have 2 big problems. First, they can't fall asleep and then they can't wake up. These are the problems we are going to deal with now. You may not turn into a nightingale, but you can get closer to the dove. Watch this video to the end, apply my tips, and you will start sleeping much better, fall asleep faster, and wake up easier. Who are these owls? Sometimes I even get asked, could it be a myth and owls don't exist? They exist and hedgehogs exist too. In the middle of the last century, experiments were conducted, people were placed in a cave without timekeepers, everything there is absolutely the same, lighting, humidity, temperature, and there are no clocks. And people began to live according to their internal biological clocks, and someone began to sleep longer and stay awake longer, and their days became longer than 24 hours. These owls have internal biological clocks that are slightly behind astronomical ones. Larks, on the other hand, began to sleep less. Their cycle was less than 24 hours. These are larks. And what happens to the owls? For example, on astronomical clocks we have midnight, but the owl's biological clock is lagging and its biochemical processes are running at 2200 level. Naturally, a person doesn't really want to sleep yet. By 7 a.m., when the alarm clock rings, it seems like it's time to get up. But on the internal biological clock, it's 5 a.m. Naturally, it's hard to get up. And he's constantly struggling to fall asleep. He has problems with sleep and then how to wake up. I don't hear the alarm clock. They wake me up gradually and I get up, crawling out of bed. I will give you 6 practical tips that will help you cope with this situation. Yes, you won't turn into a lark, but you will feel significantly better, and the quality of your sleep will also be much better. If you, by the way, are an owl like this video, first advice, as I said, the owl is active in the evening, the nervous system can't calm down yet, and what do we usually do during the day? We add caffeine, tea, coffee, chocolate, tonics, etc. In large quantities, modern man consumes caffeine-containing products. They further stimulate the nervous system, and accordingly, a person sleeps worse. And often such caffeine-sensitive people, that is, it is enough for them to drink a cup of tea or coffee 5 or 6 hours before sleep, and that's it, and they can't fall asleep. The rule is such that at least 8 hours before sleep, remove all caffeine-containing. Tea, coffee, and both black and green, because green even contains more caffeine than black. Chocolate, various colas, tonics, which can also contain caffeine. And you will see that literally in a few days your sleep will improve, especially if you consume coffee significantly later before this. Secondly, of course, owls have a bit more activity in the evening. It's a well-known situation that, for example, larks prefer to engage in physical activity in the morning while owls are closer to the evening. But we shouldn't take any idea to the point of absurdity, because sometimes an owl goes to the gym at 10 in the evening, finishes at midnight, and then wonders why they can't fall asleep waiting for 1:30. In fact, you need to finish high-intensity exercise 2 hours before sleep. But these are things like active sports games, wrestling, active strength exercises, weightlifting, heavy weights, because this in itself activates the nervous system, and at least 2 hours, better even 3-4 hours are needed to calm down. You can go for a walk or swim slowly up to an hour before sleep, as these activities are not very stressful. But once again, high-intensity loads, at least 2 hours, better finish 3 hours before, and then the nervous system will calm down and you will sleep better. Third, as I said, owls have slower biological processes, and in particular, they start producing melatonin, which causes sleepiness later. And remember, it starts to produce in the dark, or so to say, in the dark time of the day. And in this sense, it is desirable for owls, especially if it is, say, summer months, when it is still light enough, at least 2 hours before the expected bedtime, to remove bright light or natural, and then it is better to wear sunglasses directly in the evening so as not to irritate the retina with excess light and additionally did not lead to a drop in melatonin. If you are at home, then to provide dim light and to provide so-called circadian light, we have different color temperatures. There is light intensity. It is measured in lux, and color temperature is measured in kelvins. And if we take 1700 kelvins, this is the so-called warm home light. So it significantly reduces the production of melatonin. And also somewhere around 2 hours or at least an hour before sleep, it's desirable to dim the lights. and if possible, it's better to use a sufficiently dim lamp with the same warm yellowish light. And accordingly, this will allow you to fall asleep better. Of course, I'm now talking about such behavioral things that improve sleep, but at the same time, it's clear that for the past 3 years, we've had constant chronic stress, and maybe this is not enough to normalize sleep, and even a significant number of people are developing insomnia. It is now believed that up to half of the adult population has chronic sleep problems, and in particular, chronic insomnia. I implement the cognitive behavioral therapy program of Dr. Buzunov. This is my author's program, which allows effectively treating insomnia within a month and a half if it is already chronic insomnia without sleeping pills. In the description to this video, you will find a link to information about my program if you suffer from insomnia and you are wary of being prescribed drugs, or you have already tried some drugs and they do not help you much and insomnia persists. Contact me. I can effectively help you. The owl's nervous system is quite active in the evening and it wants to consume information, browse social networks, chat and so on, but this further irritates the brain. And there are studies that show that active use of social networks and gadgets in general and going online excite the nervous system, and a person starts to go to bed later and later and later. That is, he goes to sleep later, accordingly later, and then can't wake up in the morning. And this is a problem for owls because on the one hand, they don't seem to want to sleep. And here are social networks that interfere even more with sleep. So try to remove gadgets, remove communication with social networks an hour before sleep, so that the brain gradually calms down and transitions from active wakefulness to passive wakefulness and to sleep. So, an hour before sleep, we have already taken everything away from you. We've taken away your gadgets, your phone, your TV, so we're banning you from watching any political shows, physical exertion. You can't be active. So what can you do? Well, first of all, you can just chat with your loved ones. You can create a bedtime ritual for yourself when you incorporate some relaxing procedures. For example, a bath with magnesium salts. You meditate, you engage, say, in breathing techniques or muscle relaxation. You simply calm your nervous system with a certain sequence of actions. Interestingly, if it is repeated, this sequence of actions, you will reflexively want to sleep by the end of it. Just like children have a bedtime ritual. The child had dinner, brushed his teeth, you sang him a song, played a little, put him to bed, stroked his head, and he fell asleep. More precisely, the sequence of actions caused the child to fall asleep. A similar ritual, if you repeat it in adulthood, will also lead you to sleep, calm you down, and you will find it much easier to fall asleep. And what cool rituals do you have that help you fall asleep? Please share in the comments, and we might discuss it, or other viewers will see and take something for themselves, apply it and start sleeping better. And the next recommendation, and perhaps the most difficult one, is not on weekends. Owls face a characteristic problem during the course. During the working day, with an awakened nervous system, by the evening, as I said, gadgets and so on, they don't want to sleep and go to bed later and start to accumulate sleep deficit, because on working days you still have to go to work in the morning. And this deficit accumulates, the weekend comes, and the owl thinks, well, great, on Friday I'll hang out until 3 in the morning, sleep until lunch, then hang out again, sleep again until lunch, and really the owl gets a good rest. When a person, especially an owl chronotype, shifts their biological rhythms later, it becomes easier to stay up later, but harder to sleep longer. But on Sunday, you have to try to get back on track, and it's extraordinarily difficult for an owl to go to bed earlier and get up earlier. In general, it's always very difficult for owls to travel east when they move, for example, earlier. So, it turns out, the owl slept until lunch on Sunday. He can't fall asleep first, then he can't keep his eyes open on Monday morning, he barely gets himself together. On Tuesday, he's still somewhat off. Wednesday, Thursday, well, more or less the person is back to normal, then the next weekend comes again. And a person sets up for himself what is called a social jet lag 4 times a month. That is, every weekend he shifts his hours 3, 4, 5, 6 hours in one direction, then returns back. This completely disrupts the circadian rhythm. This is the sleep itself. This sharply worsens the problems with falling asleep. A person then wakes up in the morning, especially at the beginning of the week. And here is a quite harsh recommendation that you should get up no later than 2 hours later on weekends compared to weekdays. Yes, there may be such a call in the wilderness, but I assure you that if you have a real problem, you really want to deal with it, the first rule is not to oversleep on weekends, but to get up no later than 2 hours compared to weekdays. And you will notice that you will start to sleep significantly better on Sunday. Wake up on Monday, and you will not have this so-called Monday syndrome, and you will start the week much better and maybe end it not in a club at 3 in the morning, but with an evening walk somewhere at 11. Well, you won't have to sleep off the weekend. Subscribe to my channel, watch the videos, and you will sleep soundly and well. And don't forget to click on the bell so you don't miss my new interesting videos.